I wanted to start off with you, Bob, and ask you as a producer, how did you first hear about the project? How did you get attached to it? What attracted to you?
Well, a couple things attracted to me. I was a big and early supporter of President Obama, and also the film being shot in Chicago was a big thing for me. And I just thought Richard wrote an amazing script. And it was interesting because Tika first brought me the script maybe a year and a half before they started shooting. And I just saw Tika's passion and how much she was talking about it when she was on board. And then I loved it, but I said, I don't know how to find the money for this. I wish I could do it. I was just being very forward and honest. And then I was fortunate enough where like a year later, it came back. And I sat down with Rich. And Rich's vision of what he wrote was so on point. Like, you could tell he shot the film 5-6 times in his head. And he was so prepared and so disciplined and ready to make it that it was like the combination of everything just made a lot of sense at the time.
Because it's a really unique film in that it's not like a biopic, and it's not really, about just them, but it's a romance film. And I was wondering, how did you approach other people that are becoming part of the project in terms of talking about the story? How did you frame it?
Well, it was interesting because it's, we kind of model it after like a Linklater film, which he's done so well in the past with Before Sunrise and After Sunset. And it was just an intricate story. And I think people, everybody up here could jump in, but it was the script that grabbed your attention and really grabbed your attention.
I'm just curious too of just about life rights. How does that work for something? Because they're public figures, obviously, but I mean.
Well, it's interesting. They talked about that date. In 2007, prior to the election, Rich read an article in the New York Times where they talked about their first date. And everything on that date actually happened except the community summit kind of thing that he did. He did that 3 or 4 dates later. He waited for her to do that. And that's where he actually got her, I think. But all the, from going to Baskin Robbins, seeing Do the Right Thing, going to a bar, they went to the Art Institute. So all those events they talked about very openly in the past.
Well, and Twinkie, I want to ask about your involvement. You were just talking earlier about how when you first heard about the script and how you got involved in it. I was wondering if you could share that as well.
Absolutely. I have cast Tika on numerous occasions as a casting director, cast her in a couple of projects, including Sparkle. And we became fast friends, and she attended one of my events where I speak to young actors and artists, and I share with them to create. I'm like, your hashtag should be #create, like that's your job. And leveraging your celebrity in order to create. And she called me one day and she said, remember when you said about leveraging my celebrity? Well, I have something that's perfect and it's an independent and it's got to be done, Twinkie. It has to be done. So she emailed it to me and I read it and we sat down at dinner and I said, I'm in. What do you need me to do? Like, who do I need to put it in front of? What do you need me to do? So that's how it started for me 3 years ago.
And then how did you find the actor who played the role of Barack Obama? I'm kind of curious very specifically, like, were you looking for a look or mannerisms or, you know what I mean? Like,
we're artists. So there are times when you can do a spot on kind of thing. And there are times when it's someone that has the feel, you know what I mean? And be open. So I try to be open about it. I've had numerous conversations, especially with my brother Jeff, about Denzel playing Malcolm X. And he was like, open up, sis, open. So, I had to open. And as I grow as an artist, I realized that I'm looking for the feel. That's what I'm looking for, the feel. When you feel it, there's nothing wrong. Everything is right with the feeling. And the cherry on top is the look. Oh, yeah. And so when he sent in his audition tape and I sent it over to Richard was like, absolutely not. He's trying to do Barack Obama. And I was like, okay, breathe. All right. Because, it's the feeling. So what about you? What about him bothers you? Like, what is it, Richard? Well, he's just trying to do it. And I was like, all right, breathe. It's going to be okay. This is what we're going to do. You try it and you tell me what you think. This is my feeling, but tell me what you think. Turning off the sound. And he did it. And then he understood exactly what I was saying. And I said, now give him all the notes you want and let's try a take 2. Mm-hmm. And that's how it happened.
And did they perform together in another audition? Because they
They
have such
did.
great.
There was a chemistry read, and it was. I had tears. It was as soon as I had tears and turned around to all these guys, they were like, "Yep, we're done." Twinkie's crying.
It was easy once you saw them. Like you were done. Like that was it.
And Stephen, I want to ask about you worked with other filmmakers like Charles Burnett, and I want to know about what is maybe just you talk briefly about your process in terms of scoring a film. How do you approach it?
Well, the main thing is to try to tune into the filmmaker's muse. It's not so much getting direction or sculling it out as it is what inspired the director to do it this way, to direct the editor. What are the rhythm of the cuts? What's the general feeling that, and I always cross-examine my directors. Mm-hmm. First question is, what do you want people to feel from this scene? What is it you want people to feel when they leave the theater? That's what I really work from, because those are real emotional values. And I can translate that into music or style or instrumentation. Those things I think, are of lesser importance than addressing what it is that the writer-director wants people to feel.
Well, and it's such a unique story too, in that it's a one-day story, and I feel like the music does a really great job of making that journey from beginning afternoon to evening. And I was wondering, is that something you were thinking about in the film? Was that one of the director's feelings?
Yeah. It was really important to keep it really simple, and just kind of have one theme, one sort of sound that would tie all the different scenes together, and kind of just frame the emotion that was already inherent in the performances. But in this particular case, I had 2 instruments custom made for this, one for Barack and one for Michelle. Barack's instrument is something called a baritone guitar, but it has 31 frets instead of 12, which means you can get these really fine gradations of pitch that I think address the nuance of some of their performances. And then for Michelle, I have an instrument that a violin maker friend of mine made. We call it the Transcendello, and it's a cross between a pedal steel guitar and a cello, and a Vietnamese instrument called the Dan Bao. So you bow it like a cello, but the pedals can change the pitch, and you can pluck it. You can also hit it with mallets. But I used it mostly as a kind of cello substitute, something you couldn't quite identify, but it was familiar. And in her case, the first thing you hear is just one note, because she's not given anything, right? And as the movie goes along, then that instrument starts to open up, and at the very end, they play the same melody together with the guitar.
Awesome.
Evan, I wanted to ask you too. You have a very extensive filmography, and you've worked on a lot of action films like Hellboy 2 and Mission Impossible: Ghost Protocol. I'm wondering, how did you approach this project? Was it differently from an action film, or is there a genre that you like working with more than the other?
I'll take any genre, definitely.
Yeah.
But this was the movie that I cut right before this was a Salma Hayek kind of genre horror movie, and one thing that was really refreshing about coming to this movie is that nobody died. I really appreciated that. But there's different challenges. I'm cutting an action movie right now, and it's been enlightening to see the different challenges of between cutting an all dialogue film and going into more action. The cutting something that's entirely dialogue, it's even given the limited amount of footage that we would have had on a film of this size, it's challenging because you have to really figure out, not only what do we want the actors to say, what do we want the story to be, but the cut points are also not, they're not as obvious as if you've got like a fight scene.
Yeah.
That's probably my daughter in the back. So that was a good challenge, for me and for Rich to kind of discover together, how do we pace this the way that we want it to be paced, and how do we communicate the story that we want to be told.
Well, I really like the ending with that last cut between the two of them, and I'm wondering if that was something in the script or that came out of the editing room, or.
It was a little bit of a mix. The original script had Michelle's mother come back at the end and be like, so, not a date. And it took a while to get that back and forth right, and how much time do we spend on both characters. And I really liked, we had one version where it was you just saw Michelle once and you just saw Barack once. I like coming back to Michelle for that second little, it's just a a tiny little peek.
Yeah.
She does that little thing with her lip and looks away, and it's like, for me, that was the perfect way to end the film.
It's very.
To their credit too, I got to say that Evan and Rich, like the cut that I saw first, that's pretty much the cut you see. Like there wasn't there wasn't a lot of changes or
three
notes, and every single scene we shot is in the film, so there wasn't like anything. It's all there. And to their credit, it was like right on point, right when they showed it to us.
And you premiered the film at Sundance, and I was wondering for all of you, what was the experience going there? How coming out of the festival? How was all of that for any of you?
I loved it.
Yeah.
It was awesome. They have a great community at Sundance. It's just absolutely beautiful, and it was brilliant. And it's got a standing ovation, and a lot of the cast was there, and it was an awesome time and an epic event.
They were feeling the love.
Do you know if Barack and Michelle Obama have seen the film?
They have the film. We don't know if they've seen the film, but I know a lot of people in their circle have seen the film. I don't feel like it's not very presidential for him to come out and say,
Hey, I've seen
come
it.
see this movie about us.
Right.
I wish
About
he
me.
would. Let me tell you. I wish he would, but I understand why he wouldn't.
Please say it.
It's
Tweet it. Just tweet it.
Especially this weekend.
yeah. Well, I want to thank you all for being here, and thank you for bringing the film.
Thank you.
you. Thank you
Thanks
very
for
much.
having me.